good to be back here with you again. As many of you know, I grew up with you here. I was a PCP and House District 8. I was co-captain working with Frank Sullivan. I was your state representative for 4 years, and I was your state senator for 2.5 years. It is good to be back home again here with you, talking about the issues of the day. And the issue of the day is the future of our city. I'm running for mayor to protect the future of our city. You've heard this. It's a recurring theme. I'll repeat it in my own words. We're out of balance, folks. We're dramatically out of balance. Development that's not planned, that's not structured, that is being done to us and not with us and for us is disrupting the quality of our life and imperiling the future of our community. I worked for Mayor Federico Pena, who told us all to imagine a great city. And we put our shoulders to the grindstone. We started changing things. We started investing in community and getting communities and neighborhoods involved in the actual design, development, and determining the direction of our city to build a great city. But I know many of us feel that the great city we aspire to is slipping away. We watch these big rectangular gray monstrosities go up in neighborhood after neighborhood, and we're being told it's progress. And we're being told it's affordable, and we know it isn't. Things have to change. The mayor's office can change the tenor, the direction of this city. How do we get back in balance? My approach is the following. Number one, we need a new plan for the city focused on neighborhoods. I appreciate what Lisa said about evidence-based approach, but in my experience, people who live in the city know what's best for them in their neighborhoods. Evidence can be useful, but facts and figures don't always tell the story. Sometimes the story comes from here. And that's what you have to do when you go into neighborhoods. We're all interconnected. We're all interdependent. What happens in one neighborhood impacts another. So we can't be siloed any longer. As we develop and build up, we have to be talking with and working with one another. One of the first things we have to do is, as mayor, I'll sit down with developers and tell them open season is no longer open. I'm not anti-growth. Let me be clear. I am not anti-growth. I know we need growth. I know we need development. I know we need change, and it's going to happen. But you've got to manage it. You've got to master it. And we've got to dictate to growth what we want to see, not let it tell us what it's going to give us. That's how we make sure we ensure the future we want in our community. We can get more affordable housing by not letting developers buy their way out of the requirement. Simply tell them if you want to develop, you got to build. It needs to be dispersed throughout the city. It needs to be in different neighborhoods because people like to live different places. We can get affordable housing. Tied to that is the plight of our homeless in our community. Folks, we should all wake up every day embarrassed by what we see in Denver. We can do better. Shelter is a non-negotiable. Everybody needs it. We can provide for it. There are countless providers out there, and I've been meeting with them, putting together a plan, saying how can we, in my first 100 days, get all the homeless off the street. And that's going to be our goal. And they're working with us to develop that plan. It goes from Homeless Out Loud to Tiny Homes to Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. It's a wide range of providers, but there are ways, there are strategies, there are methods where the city can bring resources, both cash and land, to the table to help these providers address the least fortunate among us. If we truly want to be a great city, we can't continue to let this situation we have with the homeless continue. It's an abomination. And we know we can do better. How many of you have spent hours going anywhere in this city? That's what happens when you get unplanned and unmanaged development. Our roads are a nightmare, and I will tell you, dealing with our transportation issue is one of the toughest things we have to do because we can't build our way out of it. We can't widen a bunch of roads. We can't build a bunch of new roads. We need to rely on technology and innovation to change how we deal with getting around the city. That's why I'll be looking at forming a new Department of Transportation. The Department of Aviation used to be part of Public Works. We spun it out when we built DIA. We need to focus now on transporting people, not just in cars, but with other modes of transit and transportation, getting people around the city so we can enjoy it and so we can preserve our quality of life, where we don't spend hours getting from point A to point B, but instead can spend hours in our parks, although they're rapidly disappearing. We'll fix that too. And spending time with our families and in our community. Okay. A number of people have mentioned criminal justice. One thing I will offer there. You know, as your state representative, former Senator Dorothy Rupert and I ran the bill that would have banned prison construction on the state level for 3 years. We tried to stop it and get a reevaluation then. I don't see Leslie here, of sentencing disparity, community corrections, because we knew that we were going to run out of money, we were going to run out of dirt if we kept incarcerating people at the rate we're going now. Just as we did it at the state level, we need to reevaluate how we address crime and punishment at the city level. I know crime is up, but we can get more officers. We've got to invest in community policing. And if you want to drive down the prison rate, jobs aren't necessarily the key. The best determiner to keep someone out of prison is a high school education.
Yeah.
People who are educated don't go to prison or jail. Because they have an education, they can then get the jobs that should be available and stay out of jail. So it's not just employment, although that's important. What we need to focus on, and as mayor, I'll create a new partnership with DPS. That's why I'm wearing red for Ed, because I support our teachers who are out on strike. These kids you see running around are the future, and we need to get the best teachers with the best pay in classes taking care of them.
All right, you got 5 minutes for Q&A.
Great. Yes.
Denver has set some really ambitious climate and sustainability goals, including 100% renewable electricity. How would you continue to support those goals?
I would support it. Denver has aggressive goals, 100% renewable in terms of electricity. I think we need to go beyond that and be 100% renewable and be more aggressive. We've only got one planet, and we have to take care of it. And now is the time, not later. I supported 112 because that's a deeply held conviction of mine. We need to be more sustainable. We need to expand that mission, and it needs to be incorporated in every piece of our thinking in terms of how we run city government. We only have this one planet, and how we manage city government needs to reinforce that ethic.
Yes, could you give a specific policy example of how you would achieve that aim of speeding that goal?
We need to start looking at electrifying more of our buildings here in Denver and getting them off of natural gas. We need to look at whether it's solar farms or other mechanisms, maybe rooftops or some other things, but we need to look at other transmission and generation options, and Denver can help incentivize that in many ways. So, and part of what we're doing is I'm meeting with folks in the environmental community. We're putting some thoughts together, and we're having them critique where we're coming. But in the weeks to come, you'll see a position paper on our website, tatefordenver.com, that lays out more specifically how we would approach that. Yes, ma'am, and then Tate.
Just comment, Hillary Potter, lifelong Denver resident, and also PhD. Just want to correct the record. You said that talking to people is not evidence-based research. It actually is. I'm a qualitative researcher, so there's both the quantitative surveys and things that are done, and actually talking to people in our community is evidence-based. Yep. Thank you.
I'm just saying that there's evidence, but that sometimes what drives the equation is how you feel about your community and what you want your community to look like. It's the facts and figures don't always tell the complete story.
But that's evidence as well.
That's
we have
fine.
to get the narratives,
That's
we have
fine.
to get the stories, we have to listen to the people in our community.
Okay.
So you talked about supporting teachers. As mayor, what initiatives will you take to make sure that the school to prison pipeline in our system can be cut, or that can be dismantled, and then also making a commitment or figuring out how do we reduce the number of cops in our buildings and put in more mental health supports for our kids?
A good question. I think there are a couple of ways to approach that. First, working with DPS and connecting them with some of the apprenticeship programs that some of the unions have in this community. Not every kid wants to or needs to go to college. There need to be some other alternatives to develop trades and other skills. Secondly, and I've been a proponent of this for a long time, DPS in the city are two of the larger governmental institutions within our boundary, and they keep building new buildings, which is fine. But one of the things we need to do is not only co-locate services, but co-locate capital construction. As mayor, I want to sit down with DPS and go over their capital construction budget for the next 5 years and the cities, and where we can combine how we build things so that we can put services where people are naturally, like schools or other places, so that we're not building a new school with a gym here and a rec center right around the corner.
I mean, to be totally honest with you, that answered none of my questions.
Okay,
and
go
so
ahead.
I really want to figure out what plans you have as mayor to take to cut or to dismantle the school to prison pipeline and to implement more mental health supports in our buildings with cutting the officers that are currently in the building. We have too many police officers with guns walking around our schools
Taking
without
police
mental health
officers out of
support.
the schools is easy. We'll just take the Denver police officers out of the schools. Mental health services, sometimes you don't want to provide them in isolation. You may want them with other services in a building, which is why I talk about co-locating some of these things. Third, as mayor of Denver, I don't run the schools, but I can partner with the schools and help them provide alternatives to the kids in our schools so they can get employment and training. And the last thing is, I support teachers. I support getting the best teachers in the school so our kids get a good education, because that's what keeps them out of prison, is a good education. Yes,
Most economists think that we're talking about a boom and developers and the city growing, but a lot of economists see a recession or a depression coming nationally, and I want to know how you've taken that into consideration when you think about plans for the future.
sure.
Yeah, just real quick.
Okay, Denver has a history of
What's the
boom and bust
question?
cycles.
Right.
We boomed, we're going to bust. We just don't know when, but the economy is going to slow. I spent 2 years on the Joint Budget Committee for the state when we're running out of money. And when you're out of money is when your priorities have to be very clear. What do you care most about? And I care more about people than I do about stuff. So when those slow times come and when we have to cut budget, we'll have to prioritize providing services to people in the community and in neighborhoods rather than focusing on building other stuff. Thank you all.